Okay. Well, welcome everyone. We are excited today. We have some special guests. And last week, you guys saw that we talked about minimizing gift taxes and estate taxes. Today, we're going to meet with Greg and Erin Wilson, who have retired already for a while, actually.
Yeah, so Greg and
And
Erin, welcome.
yes.
Yo, hi everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Again, as usual, please let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions for Greg, Erin, myself, or Brian, just throw them in the chat. So I'm gonna leave this to Brian now and let's go and let's listen to your guys' story. I'm excited.
So, as a quick intro here, so Greg and Erin, Greg retired at 42 quite recently. Erin retired a few years ago at 35, which is an incredible achievement. I want to rewind the clock though to the beginning of your story before you were super young retirees. Let's talk about what you guys did for careers before you got into real estate investing.
Well, I'll take that. What I did for a career before real estate investing is I was a kid. So I bought my first house. I was 20 years old, right out of college, and I had been researching real estate for several years up to that point. Was always afraid to buy a house when I was a teenager, so I put it off until I was 20. So I graduated college when I was 20 and moved back to St. Louis from Mizzou, University of Missouri Columbia, and was in an apartment and just one day went up to a local real estate agent and said, I'm going to buy a house today. And they laughed at me and had no interest in that conversation whatsoever. But they brought this old man Elmer out from the back and said, Elmer, you got to deal with this guy. And I looked like I was probably 16 and told him I'm buying a house and let Elmer know what I was looking for and all the specs. And he said, all right, well, let's get in my car. And we went and looked at 5 houses and I bought one that day.
Wow. I have to ask you, did anybody influence you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I'm from a family that has many self employed people and also, especially my dad, who my entire life had owned businesses. So I understood, the basics of finance, well beyond the basics of finance, even as a little kid. And with real estate, grandparents on both sides of my family had houses. I have a lot of uncles, and they had houses. So when I was a little kid, little guy, the people that babysat me had me picking up gumballs. So in those conversations, all the way up until I was in high school, that's what I knew. I was around real estate. I was around rental houses. I was around tenants. I was coached through how to interact with tenants. Make sure that you treat them as people. These people, it's a partnership. It's not us landlords telling the tenants what to do. It's a partnership, and that makes the entire experience easier. But yeah, I was passively coached and actively coached from a very young age. And when I mentioned a couple minutes ago that when I got back from college, I went and bought a house and was afraid to do so a little bit earlier, it's because that's all I knew also. So when I signed my first lease for an apartment in college, it felt bizarre that I was paying a landlord money all the time. I wanted to be on the other side of that, but I didn't want to buy a house when I was away at school.
Right.
I wish I did,
So,
but I didn't.
I mean, as a recent college graduate, you must not have been making very much money when you bought your first property.
No, and the money part is, or my income part is probably the part that I'm most proud of by far. So when I bought that first house, I was making maybe 25 a year.
25 to 30 a year is.
Yeah, but I was and actually when I bought my first house, I was actually unemployed. So it
Oh,
was,
wow.
it was
Wow.
between jobs. And I was still extremely comfortable with doing it, and got the lender comfortable as well. But it's up until all through my 20s, and I had 8 houses in my 20s. All through my 20s, my income from my job, I don't think got much more than 50,000 a year. So I started making 25,000 a year with 5 houses.
That's amazing.
That's great. Well, so let's talk about how you started, getting into these properties. How did you go about finding deals? How did you go about financing these deals? What kind of properties were you looking for? Talk us through those first few deals and how you went about those.
Sure thing. And just to set things up a little bit, Erin and I didn't start dating until I was in my 30s. So
Oh, okay.
So I got into real estate because I got into Greg. Um,
so this whole part of the story, she's heard so many times in different ways. But that's why I'm kind of dominating right now, is because this is.
Erin, did you have any reservations about it, or were you all in?
I kind of just assumed that he knew what he was doing because he had been doing it for so long before I knew him.
Okay.
And the way that he teed it up for me was exactly how he's explaining it to you guys. It's a business. These are people. I am, there's a lot of people out there who aren't good landlords. There's a way to not be a good landlord, but I don't want to be like that. And so I actually didn't have many reservations. And shortly after we started dating, he had his first vacancy and he was like, well, you can come help me if you want. I like painting walls. I used to like painting walls a lot more. So I just, I did it. And now it's what we do. It's a little different now that we have 3 small kiddos in the mix, finding pockets of time to do it versus being able to go for 4 or 5 hours after work and come home really late and eat dinner at 9 o'clock and then go to bed. But no, there were no reservations. I don't think. I kind of just trusted that he'd been doing it for so long that clearly he was doing okay with it.
I ask because there are sometimes, that is a factor in some couples where one is like real into wanting to get into real estate investing, and the other one is a little bit, I don't know.
And today I would probably be more like, I don't know, but it's worked out so far.
That's great. That's great. Pretty soon the kids will be painting.
Yeah.
That's right. Free labor.
Our son helps. He turned 5 yesterday and he gets out there and cleans, and I give him a little roller and he's got paint clothes. It's been a few years since we've had a vacancy that we've had to do that with. But he knows how to push a vacuum, and I just find little things that even if I have to go back and redo it, he's having fun and he's exposed and he's learning. And that really is what the important thing is for us, is that we don't want our kids to see that we have things, right? We want them to see that we work for the things that we have, and they help us do that when we have some vacancies.
I love that. I love that.
And Brian, I know you asked a question, but I want to touch on something else Erin said a minute ago. As far as, I don't think I touched on this in the interview that we did a couple weeks back, but the whole idea of being a better landlord. So that was something that was, I branded myself that way. And when I decided, yes, I'm doing this, I surveyed a lot of different landlords that I knew and a lot of different friends that were renting that I knew. And, I had been a tenant myself. So I went through the list of, here's all with these survey questions, here's all the things that people didn't like about their landlord. And I decided every single one of those, I'm doing the opposite. So I tried to set things up in a way to where everything that people didn't like about their landlord, I was the opposite. And then I charged higher rent for it. So even when I had neighbors that also had rental houses that were vacant at the exact same time, I could charge 150. I could charge 10% more just when walking people through that had just walked through the other one by just saying, I'm a better landlord for these reasons. Not necessarily a better landlord than that guy, but you're going to get customer service. And just from that, I'm able to charge more because of the Lexus approach instead of the Camry approach. Same car, but I'm premium.
What was some of the number one answers that you got?
The privacy. I mean, two things. I don't like my tenant checks up on me, or I don't like my landlord checks up on me. And the other is my landlord is an old man or sends over his old handyman to fix the faucet. And he comes over 3 times and then I stop calling him and it's still broken. So right away, and I wanted to find ways to be efficient with everything too. And that's something I was pretty obsessive over. So right away I decided, okay, I'm outsourcing everything. It's going to crush my profit margins, but I don't care. The goal is pay off these houses, stop working sometime in my 40s. So instead of tenants calling me over and over and over about leaky faucets, I send somebody over, fix it, and that's that. So just nickel and diming I avoided, and still, I mean, we still have houses, but just avoided the nickel and diming. That and I get checked up on too often, which I don't want to check up on anyone. So I don't want to waste my time checking up on tenants all the time. You try to have tenants that are adults, and you don't need to check up on them.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Christina says, oh, OMG, I have a property manager that did that, sent a handyman 3 times to fix something, and it was never done properly. Yeah, I think we've all been there. Super frustrating.
Yeah, and for the tenant, it's horrible, and it doesn't. I don't want 3 phone calls, and they don't want to make 3 phone calls.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about your investing strategy. What kind of properties are you investing in? How are you funding these deals? Because people are probably curious about how they might be able to replicate some of your results.
So
all single family homes.
Yeah, it's something where I decided that I wanted to have a niche and become an expert on a little tiny area. So that was something, when I was a teenager at the library, I'm reading about Warren Buffett and, picking up on the same kind of things about, know what you know and don't spread yourself thin. So instead of trying to become an expert on house prices on many different zip codes, I concentrated into mostly just one little area, but I also wanted diversification. So my diversification was a few zip codes away, so not really that far away, and then another one that was 35 minutes away from the others, just to have some kind of diversification. But I had the niche, and I keep using past tense because we just sold 5.
We sold 5 houses last year.
Oh, congratulations.
So I keep using the past tense, but had the niche of the small little area that I decided I was going to get to know really well. And all the houses are single family, residential. Most of them I intentionally had slabs without garage. Basements are real popular in St. Louis. So most of the houses I had slabs with no garage, but then I intentionally had a couple that had basements and a couple that had garages. So when tenants wanted to move upstream, I can move them upstream. When they want to move downstream, I can move them downstream. So a lot of times when I had vacancies, I just rotated tenants around because they wanted to stick with the better landlord. So they would go from, my family's growing. Okay, we'll put you in this house when this comes up. Or, I need a downsize. Okay, well, when this house comes up, do you want it? So it just settled on a niche more than anything else.
Okay. And how did you pick the neighborhoods?
It was in the city I grew up in, but I wanted it to be more than 5 minutes away from me.
All right.
That was something else that my grandpa always told me is never buy a house on the same street you live on. But
Oh, I used to manage an apartment complex that was very close to where I lived, and I would go to the supermarket, and people would see me and give me maintenance complaints.
yeah,
Don't want that.
you don't want that. Even when I had houses next door to me where I lived go for sale, I would buy them under friends' names, and I wouldn't rent them out.
Oh, that's
So it's something where I kept all the houses nearby, but not too nearby.
very cool.
All right. And how did your investing strategy change over time, or did it change?
No, I mean, my management evolved and my efficiencies evolved, but the investing approach, uh, that kid that was 20 years old that seems like a totally different person than me, everything he came up with, as far as the investment, I stuck with, and I would do the exact same thing again. I seems like a totally different person in my head, but I like what he did.
That's great.
Yeah.
And how did you fund these deals?
The funding. So the the first the first one, that's when I was still living in an apartment for a few months, and I just said I was going to move into it. So was able to just get a mortgage, primary residence mortgage, and then the next few did the same kind of thing, but would say that I was going to move into the next one. And then by the time I got up to the fourth, lenders started saying, no, you're clearly a landlord. And at that time, I started looking for all the different funding sources. And the funding question is tough because you've got the down payment and then you've got the mortgage itself. So I finance both. So my entire operation was funded with $800. So, and that was when I was making $25,000 a year. So by the time I got up to, I think the fourth house, I met with many people, but the person that took me under his wing was the president of a community bank. And he met me, and he gave me a 15-minute meeting. And a couple hours later into that 15-minute meeting, he said, Greg, you've got a blank check. And I'm going to personally underwrite any mortgage that you have, and you can get as many as you want, whatever dollar amount you want. I'm going to go in front of my board of this bank and get them to sign off. If you mess up, I'm calling all of your loans.
Wow.
Which for your listeners, all of the loans, they can say it's due in 30 days, or I think that's what the agreement was with me.
Just
So
30 days.
yeah, so it's a scary proposition, but I'm a finance nerd and very analytical and mapped out everything in Excel and had all these models and felt that it was low enough risk to where that was not going to happen. So was able to get funding for the next 5, and the interest rates were a little bit higher through him also, but I had a benefactor. I had someone that was looking out for me.
That's awesome.
He never called on the loans.
That's a good thing.
We figured as much since we're sitting here having this conversation today.
It also goes for saying that there's something about building a relationship, even with a lender.
Yes, he changed my life.
And you
I mean,
can't
it changed
do that.
our life.
You can't do that over the internet. And so if people are
Right.
Doing virtual lenders or finding things or filling out things online, it still pays to have that face-to-face relationship with people and to know what someone looks like and to shake their hand. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
No question. And speaking of which, so Christina from the audience asked, how about remote investing? Have you guys bought properties long distance? And do you manage all of your properties yourselves to this day?
I managed it, yes. Well, I say so we've managed they've been self-managed the entire time. I couldn't bring myself to hiring a property manager because I was just the middleman for the most part, and I could deal with the roller coasters of my HVAC broke, and then I'll just text back, okay, here's the number to call. So I didn't really want to give up the 10% for someone to manage the properties. I think if we were scaling up right now at the stage of life we're in, I would probably have a property manager.
Yeah, I think given the state of things that I mean, we have 3 kids now, 5 and under. Yesterday it was 4 and under. But it's hard to find time, and especially while Greg was still working full time before he retired and we bought into our new investment, the business that we own, Cha-Ching Queen. It was hard to find time when we had vacancies. I had to go early in the morning before Greg or the kids would wake up. I would wake up at 5 and I would go work on the rental houses for 2 or 3 hours while they were vacant. Or I would go during nap time or after kids went to bed at night. So our chunks of time were smaller. But we're in a different phase of our life now than we were 5 years ago before we had children, where we were able to do all of the things ourselves when the houses were vacant. And like Greg said before, when things would break, HVAC was out, leaky faucets, things like that, we never went into the homes ourselves and fixed those. We had someone for that. But now if we went to buy additional properties, because like Greg said, we sold 5, we still own 2 plus our main residence, we would probably make the decision to go with a property management company just because of where we are.
Yeah, there's more to it with our situation. So I enjoyed the hands-on approach. I liked finding tenants. I liked getting to know the tenants, and I liked the brand building that I mentioned as far as being a better landlord. So with that, it was something that I was enjoying, managing all those properties. Also, up until a couple of years ago, you've got this interesting thing that happens as far as the tilt between active and passive taxable income. So once your income gets to a certain level, then you can no longer write off active losses, so against your salary. So that was another reason why I wanted to manage the properties, was because of the tax treatment. Because my W-2 income was under a certain threshold. I think it's 150 or whatever it is, but it was under a certain threshold. So we were able to take losses against the W-2 income. So that also tilts the passive versus income decisions. I wanted those losses.
Gotcha.
Property manager is passive.
So now you guys are both retired, but you only have 2 rental properties. So you're able to live on the rental income from 2 properties.
Well, yeah. So yes, but I also all along, and we actually have a blog post for this on our site. My approach was twofold. One was get enough money to last from age 40 something to 60, and also get enough to last from 60 until death. So I maxed out my 401k even when my salary was as low as it was. And when Erin and I first met, I had her maxing out, well, when we got married, I had her maxing out her 401k too. So we stockpiled assets. So the rental income is for the 2 houses, does help. We manage our expenses pretty well, even though we're in a big house in a nice neighborhood. But keep in mind, when you sell 5 paid off houses, you're not walking away with $0. So
right.
It's not just that we're living off of 2.
So you reinvested those proceeds into other assets like your stock portfolio and.
Right. So we have a nice portfolio in our retirement accounts. We've got the 2 rental houses. We have a chunk of assets in a taxable account that in my head I say is not really there, but it's from selling 5 houses. And we also bought the Cha-Ching Queen blog.
Yeah, so buying Cha-Ching Queen and managing that kind of took place of managing the rental houses. And it gives us the income that we need. And it's a new experience. So one of Greg's good friends, mentioned to him when we were selling the houses that we already have a lot, we have a good understanding of single family rental homes. So if we're going to invest in something and get into something else, it needs to be something new to learn. And so now we're learning to be bloggers and business owners and influencers.
So you bought chachingqueen.com, which is a personal finance blog, right? So you bought this business as an already established blog and have been growing it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's been about 7 months. The blog has been around for 12 years. I didn't know that people sold blogs. I didn't know that was a thing. But one of Greg's good friends bought a website, so we started looking into that. Greg wanted to be done working full time for someone else, so we looked into some other options to do. We were going to buy a restaurant franchise,
Chick-fil-A.
Looking for a lot of options, but none of them fit exactly everything that we wanted. So then we started looking at blogs to buy, and we found chachingqueen.com. And the tag is living a happy life on a budget. And so Greg has always been very loud about, why don't you say your little tag?
Which one? The
Spend
personal finances, my sport?
No, where you don't spend any more money than what makes you happy. So even if you have $700, right, in your hand to go spend on whatever you want, if only spending $300 is going to make you happy and spending $310 isn't going to make you any happier, then only spend $300, right? So buying the blog is our new business venture, and there's a lot of personal finance. There's a lot of things on the blog that we use in the rental houses, though. There's a lot of green cleaning posts. So that's important, having little kids, right? We don't want to use a bunch of harsh chemicals that could cause who knows what, right? So I share a lot about green cleaning on our Instagram page. At Cha-Ching Queen, I share pretty regularly just different ways that you can green clean. I share a lot of mom hacks because that's what stage of life I'm in right now. And so probably when we have a vacancy, our next vacancy, there'll be a lot of sharing about how to involve your kids because our kids are old enough. Our son just turned 5. Our daughters, we have twins. They're 2.5.
Wow.
And so everyone will be there helping. And so I want to share that with that community and how you can teach your children about stuff like that. Our son, who just turned 5 yesterday, wanted a 3D printer for his 5th birthday. That's a big chunk of change for a 5-year-old's birthday gift. And so back to the personal finance aspect, we shared this information with our followers on our Facebook page, where we needed, while we had the money to buy the gift for him, we wanted him to understand that money isn't just laying around. So we had come into we're big Cardinals fans, St. Louis Cardinals. So someone had given us some bobbleheads and some other things that were giveaways at the game and said, these are duplicates. I don't need them. You can have them. And so our son came to us and said, well, can I sell these to get money to buy the printer?
Wow.
Yes.
And so Greg over here was like, yes.
Lemonade stand. We set it up.
So he set it, Greg set him up in the driveway out front, and our son wrote a little sign that said for sale $20. We shared it on our subdivision Facebook page, and the people came. He made $200 in 2 days, roughly.
Wow.
And so he got his 3D printer yesterday for his birthday. We actually ended up getting it half off because I posted it on Facebook that our kiddo was doing that, and a guy I went to high school with said, oh, hey, I work here, and it's friends and family weekend, so I can get you 50% off. And so we're always looking for deals, sharing deals, looking for ways to teach our kids about money. So the blog really is all encompassing of all of that. We have a lot of stuff on the blog about rental property. We have recipes. I just a few weeks ago put out an amazing brownie recipe that's super simple and easy, 8 ingredients. So it really encompasses a lot, not just personal finance, but kind of it's a lifestyle blog. That covers a lot of different things, but personal finance is one of them, rental properties and all that good stuff.
Now,
And
do
the
you have
blog,
any plans on expanding again and owning more rental properties?
Okay, hey, I thought you were going to ask about the website. The answer to that one is no. So we want to get just a certain level of growth to cover our income, and not really go above that because we want to hang out with our kids.
Right.
With the rental houses, more than half my life has been rental houses. So it feels really weird to not have them, not to have all of them. And it's something where we're at the stage right now to where our kids are around a lot,
Mhm.
and we're around the kids a lot. Too much, but we're around the kids a lot. No, but that's the entire reason I want to do this. I want to be around them. And one of the fears I had when selling, and we talked about this so much, was, and Erin touched on this, that they're not going to see all of the sacrifice, and they're not going to learn all the things that I learned about business along the way. So I'm expecting once, I would not be surprised if once the kids are actually in school, what are we going to do with our time?
We'll probably buy another couple houses.
Yeah, so I think it's a matter of right now, our biggest priority is spending time with the kids, who only one of them is in school and it's half time. And that's another reason we bought the blog, was to give us something to do.
They see us working on the blog. He tells
Right.
us all the time. I open my phone and I find pictures of him taking selfies.
My son. Hey,
Yeah. Our son. And so I was looking for something on my phone and I saw pictures of him like holding toothpaste up and holding his toys up. So he sees me filming stuff for the website, or taking pictures for Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever I'm posting on. And so now he does that. Like if he catches my phone on my tripod, he knows how to turn it on, take a selfie, and he'll start taking pictures of himself, or he'll say, I can't talk to you right now. I have a meeting about my website. And so he has a website that he's going to sell soap. He's going to make soap, and he's going to sell soap for $30, and it's going to be green, and it's going to be really good for you, and it's going to smell like this and that. So he talks about it. So he started his own business back in October. And we said, what is the name of your business? And he said, Jonathan Makes Money. His name is Jonathan. And so we said, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to shovel snow. And we said, it's not time for that yet. But when the time came, he went out and advertised his business. He had an unpaid intern who did most but he made a lot of money. So they are learning, so they're learning differently than if we were still in all of the rental houses versus just a couple. But that's what we want. We don't want them to know that my parents have this money and they don't have to work and they get to be home with me all the time. We want them to understand, like, this money didn't just fall into our laps.
Yeah. Also, as far as whether we're going to buy a few more, if you pulled up my laptop right now, which you probably shouldn't do, Zillow's, there's a few different tabs where I'm constantly stalking houses. And the other is, and your audience might find this strategy interesting, is I toy with the idea of buying a house with them. And that's their college. We've got 529 plans for them, but have them create their own college plan. And if they don't want to put much work into it, then they're gonna have to figure that out come time for college or whatever they pursue. But I toy with, in a couple of years when they're still super young, buying the house with them.
I love that, and that's something that I'm planning on doing with my daughter as well. And I love people in the financial independence and retire early community and the fire community talk about second generation fire, and teaching your kids these lessons about money and investing and entrepreneurship, and I just absolutely love it. So we do have a question from Daniel in the audience. He says, would you be open to sharing numbers, such as how much income you guys bring in from rents versus dividend income versus proceeds from the blog versus other streams of income? And do these sources combined cover all of your living expenses?
Kind of, yes. No, yes. So
whatever you're comfortable with.
No,
it varies. Being a blog owner, you don't
No,
make the same amount of money every month.
I can answer. I'll answer it with some vague answers. So
sounds good.
Directional. So the houses that we had and still have are all in the $100,000-ish price point, which is pretty normal for St. Louis. The rents were in the 11, 12, 1,300 range. They were all paid off, and the ones we have are paid off. So the expenses are, real estate taxes and fixing faucets. The dividend income, I'm going to kind of dodge that. Well, that's assuming I'm invested in things that are generating dividends, where I'm much more of a growth investor. So I'm not interested in dividends. I consider that. Erin and I talk about the money that we use to sell the houses. We are going to act like we don't have that. And it kind of leads to the other question that was asked as far as whether it's covering our expenses. We spend $6,000 or so a month, and we cover that without touching the income from selling the houses. So having 2 paid off houses and having the blog, which we bought for 6 figures, and we bought it with 30% returns, and we've got that up to 45-ish%. So it's it's something where we're covering our expenses, but it's much more variable now. It's much more. It was obviously more stable when we had W-2 income, but if we still had all 8 houses and not the W-2 income, the revenue is considerably more predictable with the rental houses. That was the biggest trade-off we probably made with selling the houses. Now the blog is, extremely variable, where, rent, I knew who was not going to pay when, and I knew what the amounts were. I knew if I had 5 houses, what we were going to make, or 5 houses vacant, which never happened, but 3 houses vacant. But it's a long way of saying, if you're not able to cover your expenses, don't do what we did. Keep your job.
Yeah, Deni and I know how the variable income goes with an online business.
Yeah, you could have answered that.
So how can people connect with you guys and Cha-Ching Queen?
Yeah, you guys, if anybody can follow us on Instagram or Facebook, Cha-Ching Queen, at Cha-Ching Queen. I am pretty active. I try to post several times a week. They can visit the website, chachingqueen.com. We cover so much stuff. You can subscribe. We have weekly emails. We try to focus on different topics every week. You can Google us. If you want to find that brownie recipe, you can just Google brownies from Cha-Ching Queen, and it'll take you right to that post. But so we have a lot of different ways that you can find us. We post many times a week on the blog. Visit the blog. There's so many different articles and posts and things that you can check out there. Over 1,000, over 1,500. We've revamped it recently, so we have merged some posts and gotten rid of some posts, but pretty active on Instagram and Facebook. If you want to follow us, we would love to have you share your thoughts on anything that we post. Shoot me a DM if you have any other questions. sign up for our emails.
And
I
I'm
have put a link for Cha-Ching Queen. I didn't mess that up.com in our comments, as well as an article that was written about Greg and Evan, and it's Greg and Erin, sorry, and it's really, really a good article. I would read it, get some of the details.
And let me give a little bit of a reverse plug, and that is that that when we bought the site, I was expecting to write a lot of posts about real estate. And then seeing a site like Spark Rental, there's no reason for me to. So I've considered, should I just start writing everything I know and typing it out? But you've got that captured. So there's really no reason for me to spend my life writing everything that your site already has. So we have a couple posts on real estate. Most of them are predating us even, and I've tweaked some. But that's a space that you guys have that. You've got that covered. There's nothing anyone's going to learn from me that you don't already have.
Which is good because I can't cook for anything. So.
Well, we certainly appreciate the shout out.
But if you
and we appreciate you guys coming on here and sharing your story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, this was awesome.
Well, we went a little longer than usual today, but that's because we love digging into your story, and I think the listeners got a lot out of it. So thanks again, you guys, and everyone check out chachingqueen.com. And Greg and Erin, we will check in with you guys soon.
Yeah, can't
Absolutely.
wait. Bye, guys.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.